This is Patrick's damage relationship sheet. Do you want to tell them what you learned by looking at that?
Well, I knew I always had kind of a temper, but then I looked at everything and I was like, wow, everything that anybody ever does to me always automatically goes to bitterness and anger, and it was something that I don't think I was really that aware of until it was all on a piece of paper for me to see, going, oh well. And it was just more of a actual form to look at and say, wow, I didn't get that from just thinking about it internally and inside yourself.
Okay.
I think I had all but like 4 words.
So they both had a lot of pain, and Sharon was just saying her daughter was damaged really harsh, but Patrick was damaged as well, but not by the same things, by different things. So it's hard sometimes to understand what's my spouse's pain because it's different than mine as to why it's there. So this is why we have to learn to talk to it. Now, when I'm in a counseling session, I literally sit across a desk and I have all this in front of me. Now I want to start teaching them how to talk to the pain. So Sherry and we all talked and decided we would go this way. We're going to go towards Patrick's pain just as a demonstration for you tonight, okay? So basically, we don't know how to do this, remember? We don't know how to do this naturally. So if I say to you, I want you to go home tonight, and I want you to talk to your husband's heart. Do you know what to do? Do you know what to do? If I said, go home tonight and talk to your wife's heart.
No.
No. So that's what most counselors will tell you. Go home and, I actually had a sheet from a counseling session I found recently that my husband and I had gone to under standard counseling, and it had 5 assignments for me. The last one said, tell your husband what you need. Never happened because I didn't know, well, how am I supposed to, I don't even know. Like Patrick said, till he saw the sheet, he didn't even know what he needed. So now he knows. So I looked at their notes and I reviewed a few things just to see what was going on because, as I said, I didn't do their primary counseling. So Patrick had a dad who was very disrespectful and yelled at him quite a lot, put him down, and compared him to siblings. So this is part of his core pain issue. They expected more than he was able to give and then criticized him for not being able to perform at the level that they set for him, which was always a comparison to somebody else who was doing better. Right? Okay.
Pretty accurate.
His grandparents, when he stopped playing football, they stopped coming to his football games. So basically they didn't care anymore. And so there was a rejection pain involved with his grandparents just suddenly cutting him off from relationship and not coming to his things.
Well, they always came to my brothers and they always joked and said, well, if you don't keep playing football, we're going to keep, or we won't see you. And then I ended up getting injured and had to have knee surgery, and I decided not to play anymore. And they didn't come back.
Yeah. So there was a loss, an abandonment, a rejection pain. So those were some of the main issues that were driving his pain. But his mom then was always intervening to protect, but then it becomes controlling and dominating and manipulative in the way that she does that. And so that's what I'm starting with, is understanding some of those core pain issues. So now, if I said to Sherry before the counseling, go home and talk to that pain, what do you think she would do? I go, here it is, go home. It's right here on the paper. What do you think Sherry would do with that?
You'd have to ask him. What does that mean? I mean, it might be written on the paper, but in order to identify it correctly, she's going to have to communicate with him and find out exactly what it is.
Right, so go home and do that. Now what do you think she's going to do?
Get a prescription for pot.
Yeah, because she doesn't know how to do that, right? She doesn't know how to do it. That's the thing. And until somebody actually teaches you how to do it, you just don't know, and that's okay. So here's what my basic, this is the majority of my job after I understand this piece. Okay, Sherry, I want you to look at your husband and I want you to talk to the little boy who was damaged. Just repeat after me. Okay, get close. They like to get close once they've had the counseling.
Yeah, you know.
Okay, so just repeat after me. Look at your husband and repeat after me. There's a little boy whose dad never understood him, isn't there?
There's a little boy whose dad never understood him.
Isn't there?
Isn't there?
Yes.
He yelled at you a lot, didn't he?
He yelled at you a lot, didn't he?
Yes.
And he showed you a lot of disrespect.
And he showed you a lot of disrespect.
Yes.
What does that do to a little boy's heart?
What does that do to a little boy's heart?
It makes me sad.
What does a heart that's sad look like?
What does this heart that's sad look like?
I get angry.
When your heart gets angry, can you draw me a picture of what it looks like?
When your heart gets angry, can you draw me a picture of what it looks like?
I feel like I'm so angry that I just want to lash out at everybody, and
Where does your heart go when you feel that angry?
Where does your heart go when you feel that angry?
I'm at a loss of words for that.
That's okay. Tell him that's okay.
That's okay.
Would you let a little girl care for your pain?
Would you let a little girl care for your pain?
Yes.
What if a little girl could respect you
What if a little girl could respect you
and she didn't yell at you
and she didn't yell at you
and she made a safe place for you to be valued?
and she made a safe place for you to be valued?
I would like that.
What would that do for a little boy's heart?
What would that do for a little boy's heart?
And make the anger go away.
Okay, I'm just gonna ask you a side question. Did Amber ever have you describe your heart?
I think so, but it's been a while.
Okay, let me see. Okay, we gotta remember what it looks like here. Do you remember anything about it?
I remember the wall
Okay,
around the heart.
okay,
I think she did just have the
okay,
description of the heart. Like I said, it's been a while.
okay. But let's go there, okay, just so
Okay.
they can hear it. Okay, so when your grandmother rejected you and stopped coming to your games,
So when your grandmother rejected you and stopped coming to your games,
what did that do to your heart?
what did that do to your heart?
It made me feel very alone and very abandoned.
Where'd you put that heart to hide it?
Where did you put that heart to hide it?
Away from everybody
How do you protect it?
How do you protect it?
with anger.
And what does that anger look like?
And what does that
Go to
anger
the
look
wall.
like?
I built a wall around my heart that I would not let anybody in.
What's that wall made of?
What's that wall made of?
Frustration and rage.
Okay, so if you were to describe a material, like brick or
brick,
cement,
yeah.
yeah, let her ask you, what would that be?
If you were to describe a material, what would that be?
Brick or stone.
Brick or stone, okay. Is there any windows or doors on the wall?
Are there any windows or doors?
Maybe a couple cracks.
A couple cracks. Are they big enough for a little girl to fit through?
Are they big enough for a little girl to fit through?
I think so.
Are you ready for a little girl to come in, or do you want her to wait?
Are you ready for a little girl to come in, or do you want her to wait?
I'm ready for her to come in.
Okay, so when I come in through the wall,
So when I come in through the wall,
what do you want me to do for your heart?
what do you want me to do for your heart?
I want you to be there for me and show that you won't leave me because I can't measure up.
So if a little girl came through the wall,
So if a little girl came through the wall
and she promised to stay with you
and she promised to stay with you
and not pressure you,
and not pressure you,
would you want to hang out with that girl?
would you want to hang out with that girl?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Mr. Any questions at that point? And what we were doing was finding his heart. Like I said, because I didn't do his primary counseling, I didn't know what it looked like. Normally I would know where to take them on that piece, so I just asked him because my intern did their primary counseling. What we're trying to do is create a safe place emotionally for his heart to come out from behind that brick wall and connect with his wife. Because he's blocking everybody, including her, and he's using anger, or had been using anger to do it. Do you guys want to share anything with them about it?
Sure.
You can look at them.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that came up with when the counseling. When I first went in, I'll be honest with you, I thought, okay, yeah, I'm gonna talk to a little girl's heart, blah 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 blah.
We were helping the intern get her hours to graduate.
They
It was
did
to
us a
help her.
favor.
It was to help her, not us.
It really was, and I'll go into this later. But my pride issues are so far up here that I'm like, I'll probably teach her more about marriage than she'll ever be able to teach me. Honestly, that's kind of how I stepped in there. Our only saving grace is we agreed that no matter what we do, we're going to be as honest as we can on the test that we had to take, and we're going to try to get as much as we can out of this, so we could at least get something that was out of value out of that. Being honest really opened up a lot, and when I seen that graph initially and said, "Wow, they got me right on," it kind of freaked me out that I just answered it. Was a, what is it, 180 questions?
Yes, twice.
Twice. It's 180 questions twice, so once on yourself, once on your spouse. But it still shocked me that I just answer these filling questions, and they could peg me so close to the mark. I had no idea what I was in store for and how it changed our relationship and the things that we've decided to do to strengthen our relationship and put the pieces back together. Some of those were anger, and I remember after the first couple of counseling sessions talking to some of my staff at work, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize I'd been that angry. And they're like, you didn't? And I was like, well, I guess all of you did, and they didn't feel like they could approach me because they thought I would just become more angry at them. And I had people out that I hadn't talked to about it said, wow, you really, what's going on in your life, you really calmed down, you've really kind of, come back, and you seem more like the person that we used to know. And I was like, well, and that was probably from different pain and trauma being triggered from my past that had been brought up and carried in, and then it was just one of those high points in life. Continuing on with the counseling, though, we found out a lot of things, and I didn't realize how much pride I had, which, again, people were like, you didn't know that? And I was like, no, I didn't. It was like you were saying with the rings, it was,
Yeah.
I did not know, I was not aware that I owned that much pride.
Right.
And Sherry and I actually just had our last day of teaching a college Sunday school class at the church that we go to. One of the things that God had really spoke to us about was that we needed to step down, at least for me personally, that I needed to step down from this position because it was more about me, or it was becoming more about me and not as much about the class or about God speaking to the class. When I really felt that, because when we were talking about, we need to let things go for our relationship, it got to the point of, well, we won't let the college class go, we'll let everything else go. And then more and more I prayed on that, it was like, God's like, you have to let this go. You have to take this piece and let it go. And so we're trying to be...
Those foundational things that Patrick's talking about in the marriage, when you've taken the time to really care for the marriage, like a lot of people run away into a lot of activities because of heart pain. But when you take that time to focus every day on your hearts and your marriage, the way that you perceive other people, you were asking about, like people who, tick you off and they're still around. That all starts to go away too. As we go through healing bitterness, as you're able to heal that bitterness, you see people differently. My sister used to always tick me off when she'd call me. I'd hang up the phone just going, she's just so selfish, I can't even believe it, And after my heart was cared for, and I'll stop on this, she started calling me. She wasn't any different. She was exactly the same, saying exactly the same things, but all of a sudden, the way I viewed her going through the bitterness and releasing it was completely different. And she doesn't bother me anymore. I'm like, oh well, she hasn't dealt with her heart pain. I just can have some compassion for that. But I'm okay. I'm okay regardless of what she says to me. So it's very interesting how other relationships break. And then your work in service changes too. The way you see and care for other people, if you're in ministry or you're in, even at your jobs, the way you view other people, you start to have more compassion, you start to have less issues with them stepping on your pain buttons, and you just get along a whole lot better with life.
Ever